Hi, welcome to the Avid Knits podcast. My name is Sara, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry both as Avid Knits. Today is Friday, April 24th. It is 90 degrees in Houston, Texas for some terrible reason. And it is also the first day of Ramadan. So if you or anybody that you know celebrates, very happy Ramadan. I wish you peace during your month of fasting. Yeah. Hi guys, it's Friday. This is the third time I've recorded. I started at noon, I was on a roll, and my friend Sienna knocked on the door because I forgot she was coming over today. I'm a great friend, I really am. And then I recorded literally a half hour ago, but I hadn't eaten really all day, and I had probably more coffee than I needed to have without food, and I just was really here, okay, all right, bye guys, So I figured that now that I've eaten, I feel a little bit better. We're all, in my house, everybody seems to be a little bit better off now. Maybe I would try again. So, hi everybody. I wanted to kind of start the podcast off. There's some changes. I am using a front-facing camera today. So, please let me know down below if the quality is terrible, if you hate it, if you like it better than my normal setup. I'm open. But I did it because I want to discuss a lot of the stuff that's happening behind me here, which I'll talk about in a minute. And show notes. I've been meaning to say this for the last 3 episodes. Show notes will no longer be found in the Ravelry group. I do have a Ravelry group. I would very much like it if you came and joined us and made it a thing that I do. Ravelry doesn't do push notifications unless it's through your email, and my email notifications are off on my phone, so don't really tend to check Ravelry. I'm not a huge fan of the interface and the way that it works. So usually I find and print patterns, and maybe I chat with somebody through inbox a couple of times, but Instagram is the way to get a hold of me. Or email. I guess you can email me if you just really want to. So until I have, I don't want to say like a bigger following, but until I have a bigger reason to use Ravelry, I probably will not be using the Ravelry group all that much. So from now on, I will put show notes down below, and you can just click on links and find stuff there. Also, any questions that you have about anything that I show, I am really good at Ravelry project pages. Please feel free to go over there and get any details that you want, or remind me to put details in if you feel like they're lacking. Yeah. Hi guys. How are you doing? It seems that the longer the quarantine goes on, the more antsy everybody gets, and I feel like we are all at a point where we have done this as politely as possible and something has to give. So I do know that a couple of states are talking about reopening. I know Georgia has taken the plunge. Governor Abbott of Texas has discussed that he wants to implement a reopening rollout program, like roll out a reopening program. But the mayor of Houston has pretty adamantly said that we're not ready for that. We're a city of 7.5 million people, and he doesn't feel comfortable with us reopening, which I think is really smart personally. However, because we are the energy and medical center of the nation, it's hard. It's really rough. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on COVID today, but I do feel like I know that everybody kind of comes to a podcast for an escape, but I don't feel like pretending that it's not happening is the right way to go about it. So yeah, if you'd like to, you can let me know down in the comments like where you guys are at, or like what's going on in your states. I'd be really interested to know who's doing what. I know that Idaho has discussed possibly not letting kids go back to school in the fall either, and just continuing online for the rest of the year. I haven't heard anything like that in Texas. I know Kansas City is talking the middle of May before they're allowed to be, before any of the restrictions will be lifted. So I know that Texas is being very optimistic in their reopening dreams, I guess. I don't know how else to put that. Sorry. But yeah, we're all just doing. So I hope that holding down is going well for you. returning viewers will know that this is probably the first time I've ever podcasted 1 week apart. Usually it's like 8 weeks apart. But I meant what I said about showing you in progress, like works in progress. I have a very, very bad habit of showing you a work when I start and then not showing it to you again until I'm finished. And a lot of that is just my own personal finishing. I'm relatively monogamous usually, and not that you'll be able to tell today, but you'll see where I'm slacking on stuff, so you'll get the idea. So for me, like, until I'm kind of finished a project and then like worked a little bit on the second one, I don't generally tend to show it. Or until I've reached a point, you know, like if I show you the beginning of a body, when I finish the body, I'll probably show it to you. But until that's finished, I don't really like to show you with 4 inches of progress on something. I know a lot of podcasters do, and I really like to watch those. I just don't tend to be that podcaster, apparently. So, I will do some life chatter stuff at the end. I will discuss this setup changes at the end. But let's just go ahead and get into finished objects. My first finished object, I didn't even finish. The aforementioned friend that I forgot about did me a wonderful, wonderful favor. My 6-year-old niece asked me a year and a half ago probably for a purple shawl, and I started one. That's it. That's the end of the story. I started one. So it's been sitting on my shelf for probably a good 9 months, and my friend Sienna, for the last 6, has rolled her eyes and said, Sara, just give it to me and I will finish it. And I have said, no, I can do it. I will do it. I'm a liar. And fortunately, she knows that. And so she finally conned me into it last time she was over to drop some, exchange some stuff with me. And I finally gave it up. And she knitted in a week and then dropped it off today, which was really great of her. And so I had very, very, very appreciative, Sienna. Thank you so much. It has not been blocked. Ends are not woven in. Like I said, I just got my hands on it, but I'll show it to you anyway. This is the Quaker yarn stretcher by, insert name here. It is knit out of, oh, you can't hardly see it. Here we go. Okay, so it's got welts in it. You can see garter ridges and stuff. So it's rows of stockinette and then rows of garter ridge, and you just keep going. You start at this end here, which I did. See, I started it. I did that, and then you see right here is where I stopped and where Sienna picked it back up. And so she did all the rest of this because she's wonderful. It has a lot more patience than I do when it comes to shawls. Any returning viewers will know, and new viewers should be aware, I hate shawl knitting. I hate it. So if that's what you like to see on podcasts, I'm going to apologize now, because this is not, then I beg you to find it elsewhere, because this is not the place. Socks, sweaters, accessories, stuffies, yeah, hey, I'm your girl. But shawls, I think I've knit one in the whole time I've podcast. And I knit it start to finish, and I love every minute of it. It's a time trades. You can look through my videos, and I'm sure you'll see it. And it's beautiful. And that was last year sometime, and I will probably wait another year to knit another one. Although I've been really interested in like Stephen West shawls. His color combos are not my style at all, but his shawls looks like so much fun just construction wise to make. And I wonder if I could get away with that, like if that would be something that would work for me. But I haven't tested the theory yet because sweaters. So anyway, this is knit out of Jitterbug, colorway here. It is a fingering weight, but I would say that it probably reads more like a sport, and it's super bouncy and uber squishy, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. I actually have 2 skeins of this. Sorry, front facing camera, so I keep looking at myself when I need to be looking at you. I'm working on it. Okay. Anyway, it's the beauty of not having a front facing camera usually, is that I don't have a choice but to look at the little thing, the little dot. I did have 2 of these. Sienna used all but maybe 20 grams of a skein in this, and it's pretty long. I think wingspan wise, I mean, it's definitely longer than my wingspan, especially once it's blocked. It'll be huge. Way more than is necessary for my niece. But, you know, here we be. And then the second skein I gave to her as a gift because she just really liked the color and said she really enjoyed the yarn, and I'm really anxious to see what she makes with it. So we'll see if she can knock out another shawl in a week. Yeah, so thank you again, Sienna. I really appreciate it. And you left your Wizard of Oz bag, and you should definitely take that home with you next time. So yeah. Speaking of bags, I do have a giveaway winner to announce. Let me do that now before I forget again. And then that way, if you're just waiting to see that, you don't have to sit here through the whole thing. So last podcast, I opened a prompt and I said, tell me what's getting you through this ridiculous time. And usually I kind of expected it to be about a 2-week opening, but since I'm podcasting now, I thought that I would just go for it. We had 18 entries, so I told my 8-year-old to pick a number between 1 and 18. And he picked number 13, which is Growing Stitches. And her name is Sara. She lives in Colorado. And so she is the winner of the Cat in the Hat Periodic Elements bag with that set of stitch markers. So congratulations, Sara. Yay. I love name twins. It's great. DM me on Instagram since it's where you entered and let me know your address and if you would like me to send that now or do you want me to hang on to it. I know things are a little bit dicey right now. But yeah, let me know what you want and I will send that out to you. Okay. So what was I working on the last time we talked? I was working on 3 sweaters, a t-shirt. Sorry, my husband's being ridiculous and he isn't in the line of camera and he's not in my room. He's just passing by the hallway, but he's pretending to sneak by and like run by really fast and it's just weird. Anyway, I had 3 sweaters, a t-shirt, and a sample that I am correcting because Sharon asked me to make it shorter. I have 5 things that I said I was working on. What did I work on this week? Yeah. So, but I do have 2 finished objects. So I didn't work on any one of them, but I have 2 finished objects. So, story time. I keep a sock in a bag. You would have seen it last podcast. It was navy and bright green, and it goes in my fringed supply bag. It is a half object, have a sock. I cast on the second sock. They're knit on size 0s. I put down those needles, and at some point during me putting them down and coming back into my yarn room 5 minutes later, either my son or myself or my husband or somebody knocked them off of my desk and bent the living snot out of my 0s. Now I use Cailliau mini twists, which is fine, but because they're interchangeable, not all shops carry them. I have 3 local yarn shops in my area that carry the Cailliau mini twists. None of them have 0s. So I went on the hunt for my other pair of 0s. I have a second pair. I know I do. Couldn't find them. And I found them in the bottom of a project bag. And so, did I pick up that second sock and knit it? Of course I did not. Did not at all. So I still have a half object of that 1 pair of socks. But I did knit 2 other pairs of socks. Now, not only did I not finish that half object, but I also ripped out the toes on these socks that I told you that I made that were too short. Now, I wear a women's size 9, so I have like a 10-inch foot. And for some reason, these were 7.5 inches because I thought that was going to fit. Anyway, instead of fixing these, now that they're all unraveled, I didn't do that. If you were here last time, you will have seen me talk about these yarns. I have knit 2 pairs of socks. They are shorties. I always knit shorties. They're my recipe. I base them very loosely off the Rose City roller, so I have the rolled cuff. And then I keep the rolled cuff. I knit them on size 0s at 60 stitches. I'm a relatively loose knitter. I use a short heel flap and gusset. I got this from Mina Phillip. She has a vanilla sock pattern. If that's wrong, I'll put it here. But she's knitting expat on, on Ravelry. And she has a mini heel flap gusset adjustment that's for free, in a free pattern. And I use that because I find that the heel flap and gusset fits my foot really well, but usually they're too long. the flaps are too long because I knit shorties, so I use this little mini one. And it's my favorite heel, and I fly through it. So the only thing that I knit for 8 1/4 inches, and then I throw in my toe. And the reason I knit for 8 1/4 inches is because this time I knit, sorry, I'm trying to make it so that they'll be visible on camera, but they keep flopping over because I don't believe in sock blockers. I knit anatomic toes. Now, I always thought that these were going to be hard as you know what, and they're not. They're not. So you pick which one you want to be your toe, your side for your big toe. So this is my right foot, for instance. So on your side of little toes, you begin your decreases. You decrease one row, you knit a plain, decrease another row, knit a plain, and you do that for 6 or 7 decreases. And then you decrease on both sides every row. And you finish out your toe. Stop when you have 10 stitches and Kitchener. Ta-da! It goes super fast. It's unbelievable. And they fit so much better because the wedge toe is even on the way out. And then this piece ends up swiveling around my foot in order to become flat with my toes. But your heel stays the same. So it's almost like the sock swivels a little bit or spirals. And on almost every pair of socks, I have a whole bunch of socks right here. I can show you. On almost every pair of socks, I get holes right there. Every single time it's right there. And you can tell that this is my right foot because of the way that my foot has changed it. So you can see that my sock is off center. And I'm wondering if the fact that when I'm walking, it creates that friction, because I don't wear my socks in my shoes or anything, but it wears them out right there in the same spot every time. I could never figure out why. And now that I've done this anatomic toe, light bulb. So anyway, that's going to be my new sock recipe. They're a lot of fun. They're really super easy. I have no problem with it. I had some issues doing it while I was talking today, but I just stuck a progress keeper into the side and knew what side I was making my little toe. This gorgeousness is my all-time favorite colorway up to this date. End of story. It just is. This is Sirius. It is on the trusty sock base. It is dyed by Nomadic yarns. So this is supposed to be for Sirius Black from Harry Potter. It is a tad darker than it's showing up because I have sunlight coming in my window. And it is absolutely stunning. Just stunning. I can't get over it. It's my absolute favorite. I use 25 grams for each for each sock. So that means that I have just enough yarn to get another pair of these if I knit them for me. Or I could be generous and use contrast heels and knit a pair for my husband. Could. So, the other pair of socks that I knit, I didn't intend to knit, but I did because, you know. And this is also Nomadic yarns. It is also a Harry Potter colorway. And this is Lupin for Remus Lupin, so the werewolf. And this sock is all in the same colorway. And this one, now I take 25 grams. Remember, when I got to here, right here, I weighed my yarn and I had 21 grams left. So I finished out my toe and I said, okay, well, I will do a contrast heel on my next sock because nobody's going to see that, and then see how far I can get on the foot. So I did my contrast heel. I just picked a gray out of my stash. It doesn't match perfectly, but it's fine, whatever. Nobody's going to see it. And then I knit, and very end of my toe. Very end of my toe. So they don't match. I don't care. They're perfect. They're wonderful. They're comfortable. This is in her BFL. Come on, don't look at me. Look at the sock. There we go. This is in her BFL base. And it's wonderful. There, she has, her bases have beautiful stitch definition. So, I think that the merino is a little bit better just because it's a little bit bouncier, but I haven't blocked these yet either. My husband has a pair of these, and I find the BFL to be has a little bit more give than what the merino does. So, anyway, they're both lovely bases. I've also used her sparkle, and my favorite so far is the merino, but I haven't used her yak silk, which takes color beautifully. Gosh, there's some colors in there that I really want. So yeah, anyway, those are my 2 pairs of socks that I finished, which is great because I have at least 2 pairs that I've had to put away because they need repairs, and I'm lazy and haven't done that yet. Story of my life. And to prove the point, Sharon, don't be mad. Don't be mad. Put in my needles, okay? So I knit this. This is the Auster. I knit it for Sharon of the Modern Skein and Josh of Red Stag Fiber. This is his yarn. It is the 100% BFL, the Croft DK base in the colorway Glas. I knit this a while ago. Anybody who's watched it knows it. Anybody who watched me last on my podcast knows that I wore this on the podcast. I put my needles in. All I have to do is snip a row down. I'm trying to show you and I'm just making it worse, aren't I? All I have to do is snip a row down and unravel that one row, and then the whole bottom will come off. And then I can just rejoin the yarn and knit the ribbing, and then I'm finished. I was supposed to give this back to her this week, but we haven't really gotten together and been like, hey, I'll meet you here, or yeah, hey, I'm going to do it this day, or I don't know. It's fine. I'm good. I'm not stealing it. I keep talking about it on the podcast, Sharon. I'm being accountable. So, anyway, I should do that tonight. I'll snip it tonight, and then I'll probably knit the ribbing tomorrow and be done. So. Now, anybody who watched the podcast last week will know that I haven't, not just last week, for the last 2 months probably, I've been raving about that sweater and how much I love that sweater and how much I want that sweater, and I need one of those. So I made a plan to knit a full cable sweater for myself because I want to. And I purchased the yarn for it, and I picked out a pattern for it. I purchased Brooklyn Tweed Shelter because Brooklyn Tweed had that apart together deal that they did with their local stockists, whatever, and I didn't choose a discount or anything like that. Anyway, so this is the colorway Plume. It's just purple with reds and blues, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I swatched for Bristol Ivy's Offshore V-neck, which is an older pattern. And I talked about it last time. This is my swatch, and these are the cables that it would have had. Now this is knit on a size 6. These are 6s. And I don't love the cable. I feel like it could be, I want it to be like this. I want it to be much more prominent than what it is, you see? And I realize that there's a color difference and everything, but they're almost flatter. Now, part of that is the yarn, because it's woolen spun. Part of it is my gauge. Now, I am a relatively loose knitter. I can knit, I always have to go down. I always have to go down needle sizes. Most people knit a worsted. I think that this is called for an 8 or something. I think I'm knitting it on a 5. So part of that is to get the types of cables that I want and the drape that I want in the fabric. And part of that is the comfort level for me. I don't want to knit this on 4s or 3s. I probably could. I don't want to. So for instance, I knit my ribbing twice, I might add. So I have 4-inch panel for the back. This is the one I did twice. And then I have a 2-inch for the front, and I joined it so it'll have a split hem. Okay. This is not the V-neck. Okay, I'm getting there. So anyway, these are on a size 3. Okay. In the pattern, I think it tells you to be on a 4. And I did it with a 4 for a size 44 circumference sweater, 44-inch circumference. And when I got done with the back, had I made another panel the exact same way, I would have had 56 inches. I don't want that. I don't want another foot. So something's with my gauge. I got something with my gauge, the way that I knit this yarn and the way that this yarn plays for me. So I used the counts for a 40-inch. I went down to a size 3. I should get, if everything stays the same, or the circumference that I have right now is between a 42 and a 43-inch circumference for this sweater, which is perfect. So I typically end up having to kind of fudge counts on my sweaters when it's non-superwash yarn. Superwash yarn's a lot more forgiving. Knit smaller and it'll turn out bigger. It'll be okay because I am loose. I made a comment last time that I had read through project pages on the offshore v-neck because I thought that the way the charts were set up was a little funny. The pattern is fine. The pattern itself is fine. The way that the pattern is laid out, she did it for Swan's Island, and the way that they chose to use pattern, the template, I guess, I didn't care for. I don't care for the way that that works out. Sorry. I have new charms for my necklace that I talked about last week, and I'll show you later. And they don't move along the necklace as well as they probably could. Anyway, there was just a lot of disgruntled commentary about there's a cable that goes along your back shoulders, comes along the wingspan, and then down the arms. And there was a lot of conversation about how that and the counts for the v-neck they were fine, but casting it on was a little weird, and they had trouble getting the right numbers and stuff. And then I did the swatch, and I didn't love the cable, and I said, let me put it away. So I put that down, and I got on my favorites. I said, okay, what's the sweater that I've always wanted to knit? And I don't know if this sweater came out before I started knitting or after. But this is the beginnings of a Bronwyn sweater, and I will put a picture here. And I have wanted one of these sweaters for years. I distinctly remember being a newer knitter and basically saying to myself that I knit so that I could make that sweater. So that's what I'm doing. And so far I'm planning to do, I did the ribbing on a 3, and I'm planning to do the body on a 5, and we'll see. Maybe that won't work out. Maybe I'll have to change that. But for right now, I'm going to try that out for a little bit. I did swatch. I'm having trouble getting my gauge to match what they want, and then still getting the right fabric. So I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I'll let you know how it goes. So that's that. I made 1.5 inches of progress on my other Brooklyn Tweed sweater. This is knit out of Loft, which is the fingering weight in the cast iron colorway. This is for my husband. It will be a Redford by Julie Hoover, which is just a really plain sweater. This is the perfect circumference for his chest, but it's not the perfect circumference for his stomach, like in the hip area or whatever. He has a very athletic build. And so he asked if I could take it in a little bit so that it would be a little more form-fitting on the bottom. And I don't really know how to, I don't know if I just want to decrease, I don't want to decrease in because then I don't want it to have like an hourglass shape or anything, so I think I might just end up taking it back down to the ribbing and then decreasing a couple of stitches. The ribbing itself is perfect. But as soon as you start with stockinette tends to be looser, so you can see right here how it does. You can see that cinches in, which is perfect. But he wants it to be closer to that, so I'll probably just decrease out a couple of stitches, and then when I get up the torso to his ribs, then I'll add them back in. So I didn't even talk about my little charms here. We'll talk about stitch markers really quick because I have some cute ones. On my Bronwyn, I have this little dude. Here we go. And this is these are little, I don't want to see my face. Okay, these are Little Bo Peep's sheep from Toy Story 7. I don't know, 4. I don't even know how many Toy Stories there are. They lost me after the first one. Oh, goodness. And my beginning of round marker is this little dude. And he is a pork bun. Ha ha! He's just a little dumpling. He's got a little pig face and a little pig snout. And he is from Charmed and Dangerous. So the, who is Noelle on Etsy. I'll put her link down below. She's got wonderful, wonderful polymer clay charms. The sheeps are from my friend Sienna, who seems to be the star of my podcast today. Thanks, girl. So, Charmed and Dangerous is a fantastic shop. I have 2 pork buns, and that's because my first one lost an ear. My fault. I was just too rough with it, or it got left out, or it got bumped. I don't know. Anyway, the ear came off. And it wasn't shattered, it was just popped off. And so I text Noelle and asked her, I was like, can I use like super glue, or is there a resin? Like, what do you recommend so I can stick it back on so it'll stay? And she sent me a new one for free. It was my fault it broke, but she was still so generous. Unbelievable. So as soon as I got that, because I didn't know it was coming, but as soon as I got that, I went through her shop and I got a acorn. I don't have it with me, I don't think. Anyway, and then I bought this little dude. Come on. And he's a little autumn leaf. Oh, he's super cute. And then my progress keeper, that is keeping all the progress that I'm about to rip out, is from my friend Julie of Sweet Sparrow Yarns, and this is a moonstone, and it came on one of her Celtic Myths club colorways. And I love it. It's perfect. All right. So there's three sweaters down. I didn't work on the ripple crop top at all. Not even going to show it. Didn't touch it. I did work on this Svelge, but if you remember, I told you that I had finished the body and the body was so short, it was not okay. So I ripped out the top. And then, just gotta make sure all my needles are where they belong. Sorry, guys. I ripped out the top. You know, I had separated and whatever. I ripped it all back out to the main body. And then I knit some more. And here I am, and I'm good. And I have just started, not that you can see. You can't see it. It's not going to matter to you. I have just started the V-neck. Yeah, you can't see it. Anyway, I've just started the V-neck. I'm literally on like the second row. Now, I don't know what this is, and I'm afraid to pull it in case I drop a stitch. What is this? Sorry. No, okay, we're fine. I read this, and it basically says to do the... Basically, it says that your yoke depth from shoulder to underarm is going to be like 7.5 inches. This is for a size 44, an ending size 44. Now, I wear a 41. So this would be a couple inches of ease on me. So it'd be pretty perfect. So I can use myself as a good measurement because my friend Camille is not that much smaller than me in those types of proportions. And where she is smaller than me, she wants extra room. So I'm just going to make it for me, basically. From here to here for me is almost 9 inches, you guys. Like, it's a good, this is solid. To have a good armhole that's comfortable, I would say it's a solid 8.5. This one's like 7 and some change. When I put this on, it's literally up here. That is not what I'm going for in a drapey, comfy sweater, especially for somebody who is postpartum. Like, that's not something I want for her. I want her to be able to use this now. I want it to be a cozy thing she can always come back to, or she can throw on over leggings and go for a walk with the baby, or whatever. I want her to be able to use this. So, you're supposed to knit an inch before you start doing the V-neck shaping. I'm pretty positive I've knit at least 2, if not 2.5. And I'm just going to be really lazy about it. I'm just going to kind of go with it and see where I end up. So I'm just going to do that and then try to build in some extra ease into the top because I don't understand the measurements of that. This is in lane issue 5, maybe. So I do need to double check for errata, but I didn't see any notes on the project page regarding that. So... Who knows? Who knows, you guys? But yeah, that's my progress on that. After knitting 2 pairs of socks on size 0s in literally 3 days, I continental knit, so my thumb it's a little tender. It hurts a little bit, and my wrists are a little bit sore just from the small circumferences. So I've definitely been feeling that. So I took a break yesterday. And I finished the Lupin sock today. I finished it this afternoon. But I took a break yesterday, and I did something I haven't done in a while, and I crocheted. So, long-term viewers will know that around Christmas, I finished my first granny stripe blanket. I got a couple of advent calendars last year. Treated myself and was able to finish a blanket. And then I had a bunch of minis left over because I didn't use all of them, obviously. I only opened 1 advent calendar for December for Christmas. I had 3. I had 3, but I had a 12 mini skein from Stress Knits. I used it in a cowl. And then I put the 2 or 3 colors I didn't use, I put it in my minis box. I got the Dragon Horde Harry Potter advent calendar last year, and it was nice. And I used a lot of those colors in my blanket, and filled in the rest of the spaces with mini swaps that I had done throughout the year. Then I had they were 20 gram minis. I really only needed 10. So basically I just had all these minis and leftovers, and I had leftovers of minis and leftovers. My last blanket was very structured, 2 rows, and that was it. This one I have been a whole lot more lax on. I am here to use up yarn. So I have a minimum of 2 rows of every color. I'm willing to stretch to 2.5, 3 on certain colors in certain spaces. I'm trying really hard not to join in at the ends. That way it's easier to weave in my ends as I go, or I can magic knot them or whatever I want to do, and I don't have to worry so much about my edgings. So basically the last time that I talked about this, which would have been months ago, I was here. I have put in, yesterday I put in If I Want Exposure, I Will Get My Tits Out by Countess Ablaze. This is from her Tits Out collective a couple years ago. This color right here is, stop looking at me, is Elderberry from A Homespun House. This one and this one are both the O-Loops advent calendar that I got last year that I opened over January, opened it over the month of my birthday. O-Loops makes a phenomenal advent calendar. You literally get a goodie every single day. I highly recommend them whenever they start making them. I haven't seen any announcements yet. The purpley here is one of my Dragon Horde colorways, and then the top one is also an O-Loops. So I only got a few colors in, but I mean, this is my blanket halfway. And then so I would say it's probably a good 6 feet long or 6 feet wide or whatever, Yeah, it's, well, maybe, yeah, it's definitely out there. So, I tend to kind of inadvertently color block. So I kind of stay in the same theme. So I've got some pinks going, and then some blues, and then we went into purples and some oranges and some greens, and then we went into more blues and purples and stuff and down. And I try to be more random with this blanket, but I don't feel like I'm succeeding. Trying. I'll shake it up a little bit. Yeah. So that's my blankie, and I love it. And I use my other one that I finished. I use it every single day. So as I'm working through those minis, because I'm being a little bit less, I'm not stopping at the end all the time. I am, like I said, trying not to get any more than 2.5 rows of stuff. So I'm ending with little tiny, like, unicorn tail almost things of my minis that are left over, which is great. So I'm throwing them in this bag. This is a Beasties bag by Danica. And, yeah, I'm just throwing them in there because I'm sure I'll do another one, or a cowl or something. I can just little tiny scraps, which will be great. Or I can do like Bluebirds of Happiness or striped stalks or something like that with them. Okay, so I don't really have anything else yarny to talk about. I really need to get cracking on some sweaters and stop jacking around with my socks. But like I said, I'm super satisfied to have 2 brand new socks, and I really love the colors. And I'm very pleased that I took the time out to do that for myself, because I do a lot of sock knitting, and I usually start with my husband's socks just because he has bigger feet than I do. So then whatever's left over, I know I'm going to get a pair of socks out of. But I think I'm going to start doing where I get the sock, because I don't really care. I don't mind contrast, but I don't love that look, and my husband likes it more than I do. So I'll probably just start making my socks first, and then adding in a contrast heel for him, and he can have the other ones. If I contrast everybody's socks, I can get socks for me, my husband, and my son all out of one skein of yarn, because I make shorties. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, let's talk about some of the changes. There will be a yarn room tour at the end of this video, but I just kind of want to point out a couple things that are surrounding me right now. I have a bookshelf over in the corner that holds all of my books and homeschool stuff and all of that jazz. And I tried to clean out some of it. So I have 4 or 5 different series of books. I have the entire collection. I generally don't tend to buy a book. It's hard. I read really fast. So I like to have a digital copy. But the problem with a digital copy is that you're spending full retail price every time you buy that book. And with as fast as I read, we're talking, a book in 4 hours. And so Sorry, my husband's outside. My husband's outside gonna do some yard work. I try and get him not to start the leaf blower yet. I'm almost done. I don't tend to, I don't want to spend that kind of money. I can read a book in 4 hours. So if there's 11 of them, you know, we're talking $8 a book. That's $100 that I can easily spend in a week, and that's not necessary. So in those cases, I like Amazon or like a used bookstore because you can get them for $2 and $3. And then whenever I'm done with them, if I don't want to keep the series, I can always take it to my local half-price bookstore or something like that, and I can get trade-in credit. However, there are a couple of series that I have liked enough to keep the entire collection. And so one of them is the Harry Potter set that I have right here. I think I have Outlander and a couple of others. But I moved this one over here just because they come in a box, like it's like a trunk. And I got it when I was like 20 or something. I don't even know if they make them that way anymore. But it comes in a trunk and it says, please deliver to. And it's down here in the holding leftover skeins right now. But I felt bad because, I mean, they're beautiful books. Like, you can see them. They're gorgeous. And they just sit in this box on the bottom of my shelf because they're heavy. So I took those out to display. And I have my knitting books and some crochet books here. And you're used to my little setup up here, and I just kind of made it prettier. This, my friends, this is an art print made by Katie Green. She has the Green Bean podcast, and if you don't watch it or you've never seen it, I really recommend it. Katie is wonderfully sweet. She's a wonderfully gentle, easygoing podcast. She is a freelance artist, and so she does a lot of real time or sometimes time lapse of her working, so you get to watch her draw, and her process is just wonderfully beautiful. She also does a lot of extensive walking on Dartmoor in England, and the scenery is phenomenal. It's beautiful. I cannot recommend her highly enough. I hope you go watch her. But she made this print. Now, I bought this print so that I could be twinsies and have Harry Potter portraits with one of my best friends, and that's Julie of Sweet Sparrow Yarn. She moved out to the country and got a new craft room, and I bought her one of these prints so she could have one of little woodland animals and all their little knitwear. We got a fox and socks, and this Stag has a full colorwork sweater, and he's using his antlers as a swift so that the badger can wind his yarn, and there's just some really cute stuff. I show it closer in my tour, but that's what that is one of her prints, and I am absolutely in love with it. So I want to take a page out of Maria's book. I saw this on Ninja Chickens, and she had shared that she was given a book called Socks for Supper. And I don't remember the author's name because it's not my favorite book, but I've read it and I really enjoyed it. And if you've not seen it, Socks for Supper is about a poor man and his wife who want to trade with who have turnips. That's all they eat is turnips. And they want to trade with their neighbors who have a cow for milk and cheese. And so the wife says, okay, and she knits a pair of socks, and she says, I wonder if you could trade our neighbors for some milk and cheese. So the husband takes the socks, and they gladly trade with them. And when that's gone, they would like some more. And so they do this 2 or 3 times, and finally they come to a point where, they do it the one time. Well, then they want to do it again, but the wife is like, I don't have any more yarn. And the husband says, well, use my sweater. You can just take some off the bottom and make socks, right? And so she does this a couple of times until the old man does not have a sweater anymore, and she only has enough yarn for one sock. And so she goes to, the husband goes and he says, look, I know I only have one sock. Can you give me half a round of cheese and half a bucket of milk? And the farmers say, of course, absolutely, whatever. And then they gift the old man a sweater because he didn't have one. And it's made out of his sweater yarn that the wife had taken for socks. And it's just super cute, and it's really heartwarming and sweet. And she read that story on the podcast to all of her viewers. And it was so cute. And I want to do it. I have a really, really great children's book about knitting called Extra Yarn. And I read this to my son all the time. And he thought that maybe you guys would like to have it read to you. So, Hector, take that off and come read with me.
Okay.
All right, stand right here. Okay. So this is my son Hector. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi. Okay. And he wants to share his favorite book with you guys. And so we thought that we would read it to you. You ready?
Extra yarn.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is by Barnett, who has a couple of stories, and they're all very cute, and they have a very distinctive animation style. It is illustrated by John Klassen. Okay, stand up straight, please. Don't lean on me. Okay. On a cold afternoon, in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. Okay. So she went home and knit herself a sweater, and when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too, but there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out
he was.
He was.
Sorry.
And even after she had made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself and for Mars, she still had
extra yarn.
At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But
it turned out they were.
She could.
She could.
And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had
extra yarn.
So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer,
and for little Louis,
and even for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had
extra yarn.
She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats, and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon, Annabelle will run out of yarn. But
it turned out she didn't.
She didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Things began to change in that little town. Stop making faces at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. And one day, an archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million.
"No thanks,"
said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for
a pickup truck.
Yeah. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said.
No,
Annabelle shook her head.
"No, thank you."
$10 million, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it."
"Leave it,"
said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she
didn't.
So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house, and they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Where'd he go?
He went back to his castle.
Back to his castle. The archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box and he lifted its lid and he looked inside. His mustache quivered.
It
shivered.
It trembled.
The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But
it turned out she was.
The end. Good reading.
Thanks.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up here. I will put in a yarn room tour here at the end of this podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed story time with us, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, good morning, everybody. I am just out of the shower and in desperate need of a haircut, but we are under quarantine, so we are keeping it real. I spent the weekend rearranging my craft room, and I'm so excited about it that I couldn't wait to get dressed and podcast like a normal person. So I thought I would give you a little tour with my just woke up face. You're welcome. Okay, so here it is. So we're just going to skip all the other stuff. We're going to go to the good thing. So I finally broke down and I bought a sofa for my craft room. And it is a right arm chase. It's a chase lounge, so it doesn't have an end, and it's just here so that whenever I'm in here, my son can come in and he can play with his tablet or his toys or do a puzzle on the floor. My husband likes to come in when I'm watching podcasts and then lay on the floor, and I always feel bad that he doesn't have an actual seat. So, a quick little tour. It's not done, so don't judge me. But just some shelving units. This is just some homeschool, used to be some homeschool stuff. We actually took this on for my brother-in-law who moved out of his apartment, and we're just hanging on to it until he gets his next one. The glare. Sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. This is one of those night sky posters, and this is actually the night sky for the day that we got married in Bend, Oregon. So yay! I bought that for my husband for our anniversary, our second year maybe. This I just talked about on a podcast recently, and this is a little witch's house in the woods. It is done by Jada Rose, who is Rose Witchery on Instagram and on Etsy. So we have the pretty picture window. That's my neighbor's house, and they have children who have this little play set that conveniently looks directly into my backyard and my windows. Totally not annoying. They're good people. They have good kids. My little plant. I'm hoping he lives in here. I don't know what they're called because I'm not a plant person, but I want to be. This is a rocking chair that my grandparents had for probably a good 15 years before they gifted it to me right before my son was born, which was 8 years ago. Okay, maybe it's 15 years old altogether. Anyway, it's quite old. And I generally have it in front of my computer, but I have a sofa now, so I don't have to do that anymore. So, along with getting the sofa, I basically, for anybody who's watched the podcast, you'll know that this is kind of my podcast nook right here. So this is where I sit, is right in front of this. And I basically used to have yarn all along these shelves, and I went ahead and ripped everything down. And I'm catching up with Needles at the Ready. This is Kevin and Ray. If you don't watch them, you should. They're relatively new, and they are a great podcast. So anyway, I ripped down everything off my shelves and I reorganized, and then I redid, this is the homeschool and school supplies, art stuff. Most of this is for Hector. There's some of my books up here, but the majority of it is for Hector. So yeah, and then I moved some of my favorites and the things that I have full series to. Like I moved my Harry Potter books over here just to create some room. I moved my knitting books over here if you want to see the scary side. Haven't figured out what to do with those yet. But I wound some minis up of leftovers, so I'm planning on doing giveaways with those and let somebody else who could use some yarn have them. So I have worsted, and this is my very first hand spun, so my very first one, and then my second one, and then my third one. And if you look at them, you can tell that the quality just got better and better. So anybody who's trying spinning, stick with it. You'll get there. So I have some Plutalope, and this is some commercial all up here. Sorry with the focus. I'll quit doing that. We have Indy. This print right here. This is my granny stripe right here. This is my socks in progress bowl because I have a bunch of socks that need repairs. This print is from Katie Green of the Green Bean Podcast. She is a freelance artist and a knitter. She has a beautiful, beautiful podcast. If you don't watch her, you should totally try that out. But she does wonderful prints and stamps, and I'm sure you've seen it. She does a tea towel and a poster, all of the different sheep breeds, and they're in this art style, and they're just so cute. She has the best artwork. So yeah, we have more Indy up here. This is my leftovers basket for things that I have probably close to half a skein left on. All of these are yarns that I caked up with the intention and then never got around to. Don't lie to me. All of you have that shelf. This is I caked it up, and it is a sweater, and it is on its way right now, except this one because I replaced it with this one. So, yeah, so that's my sweater, woolly wool sweater shelf. I seem to be on a really rustic wool kick right now. I have my little llama, and I have some Lush hand lotion. I have a wax and wool candle that I got with my Harry Potter Advent last year. I am a Slytherin, so that's the potion scent. It's very nice. My calendar full of stuff and canceled things because, quarantine. This is my dad and his mother. My dad was undergoing, had terminal cancer, and so the chemo and the radiation gave him a lot of physical side effects. Both of them are no longer with us. I have a piggy bank from my first trip to Pikes Peak in Denver, Colorado when I was 21. This is Outlander, pretty box, needles. This is that same grandmother I just showed you when she was 20, maybe? She's so pretty. I love her handmade dress. If you look really closely, you can see that they are birds in cages. And she has and her little bow, and I think it's just so sweet. Speaking of birds, I have a bluebird of happiness. And yeah, I have a very pretty macrame that a friend made me. Yeah, so there we go. That is my little craft room tour. Okay, so super slapdash and quick, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in a minute.